Ladies and gentlemen, the Buffalo Bills are facing off against the New York Jets this Sunday. We just heard news that Ed Oliver was playing ping pong in a walking boot, transporting himself around with a scooter. Who the hell knows what is going on with this injury report? Who the hell knows where our heads are about this matchup? We're going to find out on today's episode of the Bills Roundtable. Hit that thumbs up sign for us. Easiest way to show love over here on the channel. Z-Bot, how's life? Talk to me.
Life's great. Can't wait. 1-0. It's been great enjoying this win throughout the week here. Everybody's been talking about it. Even people that aren't really football fans have been talking about it with me. That's when you know that was one hell of a game. Jets around the corner, like you mentioned. We'll be at that one at the beautiful, scenic MetLife Stadium, Dan. I know you've been. We've been there together, and you know how beautiful of a venue that is. So can't wait to be in attendance again. To see a game that should be, based on this past weekend, if we get even a dash of what we got from both those teams in that game, it's going to be a hell of a game. So I'm looking forward to it. Can't wait. And I'm thinking 2-0 is on the horizon, hopefully.
Thinking 2-0. I'm feeling the same way. Kevin, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Feeling good, man. Another day, another game. Things are getting kicked off. So I'm pretty excited to be here. Pretty excited to. Can the Bills take it to 2-0? Can they avoid a letdown? They seem to have a plus of horrors in New York. That's the only thing that's been interesting. Won by field goal last time. It got Hail Married. There are so many things that happened. And then, Aaron Rodgers goes down the year prior. It's always worrisome. I mean, Miami we own, but New York is kind of always a little bit worrisome with all this chatter on how much they could be like the Baltimore Light. We'll see what happens.
So somebody that was watching Fourth and Forever called them the Temu Ravens.
Okay.
So the Temu Ravens. It's probably like their position of being able to control the competition. And so I do agree with you. But like, here's my thing. Like, I have been scrolling on X for the past couple of days. And of course, many of the celebrations I've seen of Buffalo pulling off that comeback on Sunday night, you're also mixing in some of these talking heads being like, oh my God, it's Justin Fields. He's really developed into a passer after this first game. I think here's my question, right? Was this just an anomaly? Do we really believe that he was able to take that significant of a step in being able to read defense and being able to be a field general? Or is there more context that we should be looking at? Because when I look at this matchup, I very much would like to force Justin Fields to beat us with his arm. I genuinely would love for that to happen. If we can go on ahead, stack the box, perhaps do our best to maintain his ability on the ground. I think last time we played him, he had like 11 yards on the ground rushing. I'm fine with that matchup. I don't care if Dorian Strong's out there. I don't care if Tre'Davious White on one leg is out there. I don't trust Fields to be able to make this consistent all throughout 2025. Kevin, thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, we've heard this before when it comes to the Jets. How many times you both can remember? We heard coming off of Mike White's like 5,000 yards and 7 touchdowns that one week. I forget if they played the Bengals or who they were playing that one time. And we were hearing like he might be the next quarterback. Like, we've heard this so much out of some of these teams. And really the only one that's ever been at least somewhat decent post Brady has been like Tua a little bit at times. Or a little bit earlier on in his career. But beside that, in our division, we've heard about Mac Jones. We've heard about, we'll see what Drake May is. We've heard about, obviously, Mike White, like that one little stretch in the season. They went out and got Aaron Rodgers, who's an all-timer. But like we've heard this before. And, Zach Wilson, who always did play a little bit better against the Bills than others. So we've heard this stuff before. And Justin Fields presents a unique challenge, and he can do some of the things Lamar Jackson can do. But much like it's like saying Bo Nix can do what Josh Allen can do, though. Like, it is just not even close. Lamar is a special player with a special running back combination that's been so hard to scheme against. It puts you in stress on every single offensive snap. The fact that they don't go 15-2 or better every season, shocking. But you can talk about the other side of the ball where, old man Rivers is throwing 4 touchdowns on the Jets. So like, they're supposed to be a defensive team. They always have been in history. I don't think that Justin Fields presents even close to the same challenges. You're not worried about a lot of the same things you are. I don't think their weapons are very good. Ultimately, you have Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. You can game plan for that. I don't have anything else behind those two that you're even remotely worried about It doesn't stress you for going up for 100 yards. And if he does, you're still probably feeling pretty good because he's not throwing the ball. Ultimately, it's not the same thing. And we've heard this before. Zebot probably knows, like we've heard this before about some of these quarterbacks that come out of nowhere in our division and they just don't end up by week 8. It's somebody else in there.
Somebody else in there, man. Field sounds like Kevin's not bought in. What about you, Z?
Well, numerous teams haven't been, right? The Bears weren't bought in. The Steelers weren't bought in. Ironically enough, I wonder if the Bears would be in a better spot right now with Justin Fields. What we've seen in the limited sample size with Caleb Williams, you factor in what they could have had asset-wise if they were to have just kept Justin Fields. I mean, it's something to ponder for sure. And you look at what Justin Fields has done in the league, it's an interesting case study because it hasn't been bad. It just hasn't been great. You know, I look at Baker Mayfield early in his career. It wasn't great. Then he got a good foundation in Tampa Bay and it worked out. You saw Sam Darnold go to Minnesota just for a year, but look at the year that they had. And, you know, maybe this is the spot where Justin Fields can find some success. But with that said, it's also the Jets. No quarterback has really ever found success in New York. And then you look at Aaron Rodgers on the other end of that game. And this is where you have to wonder, based on your question that you asked, Dan, you know, in week 1, is this sustainable? Well, what Rodgers did in week 1, is that sustainable? Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals offense, what do they have, 120 total yards of offense? And we're going to see that every single week. Are we going to see the Bills allow 40 points, score 40 points every single week? There was a lot of crazy stuff that went down in week 1 that I think we are not going to expect to see week in and week out. But with that said, though, I think Justin Fields in there, what he brings, the mobility, if he's able to throw the ball like he did on Sunday, he is a threat. He is certainly a quarterback that is going to be able to be competent enough for your team to win football games. But the New York Jets under Aaron Glenn are meant to be built around their defense. They've always been built around defense for as long as I've essentially been alive. I mean, that's been the Jets' identity. The second they fired Robert Saleh as head coach after the Bills game last year, Aaron Rodgers, Hail Mary at half, crazy game, down to the wire. Bills get a pick late to seal it. They fire Robert Saleh, never agreed with the decision at the time. They were always going to fire Robert Saleh. When they didn't make sense to me. This defense has not been the same since. And obviously Aaron Glenn, a good enough coordinator to get a head coaching job. It's tough enough to do that now as a DC, the way the league is going, constantly looking for offensive coordinators to take over head coaching jobs. I look at that to be the biggest element of the game here. If Aaron Rodgers was able to put the stat line he put up against that Jets defense, 4 touchdowns, nearly 300 yards, just really doing whatever he wanted. Josh Allen just had 270 total yards in the fourth quarter and 3 touchdowns against the Ravens, who on paper at least, and we'll see what ends up happening there, that defense, interestingly enough, did not look nearly as good as I think we were expecting them to down the stretch, certainly. But my whole argument here is if Aaron Rodgers at his age currently was able to do what he did against the Jets defense on Sunday, what's Josh Allen going to be capable of doing if they have a similar effort on Sunday?
And they just released their injury report too. And you're seeing their rookie tight end, who is very promising. You know, he's missing, missing practice. Did not practice yesterday and limited today. And Mason Taylor, Sauce Gardner was now added to the injury report. With a groin injury, with a groin, that's not great. We've seen that keep Trey out for a while at corner. That's not a great injury to have. Josh Reynolds did not participate with a hamstring, and the returner is also out with a hamstring. So those fringe weapons, like they have, like we've talked about Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson, but I just don't think they have the power to get it done. And Zebot hit the point on the head that I was trying to make. The defense is just, it's got to be better if they're going to compete in some of these games, and they're not going to win many games in the 30s. It's not going to happen. So they got as close as they were going to get.
So wasn't Michael Carter the second or slot corner on the list yesterday too? As he been elevated to full participant?
Yeah, he's a shoulder limited participant yesterday and today. So
he was limited today.
Yeah.
So it's going to be pickings, man. Like really all over the place. Like I even pull up
multiple corner injuries.
Yeah. And so I pull up the lineup too, because like what I always like to do is I like to pick out matchups. I'm not really reading too much into PFF scores after week 1.
No.
But I do like looking at some of the perceived matchups. And from my stance, I'm interested to see what Will McDonald and Deion Dawkins do. Like that's going to be a pretty key matchup for me because Will McDonald was an absolute dog.
How did they give just real quickly, they gave the line, they're the second best line in football, maybe first with some metrics.
Yeah.
That's an awful score. That is literally egregious. I have no idea how you could see the pass block win rate. That's terrible. I just wanted to comment on some of those scores I see there that you have up.
Now, you're referring to the Jets defensive line or the Bills?
Sorry,
offensive?
the Bills. You said how the McDonald versus Dawkins matchup, and I'm looking
Yeah.
and seeing
Yeah.
no, but like literally that's egregious.
Yeah. Like it's PFF numbers, especially after week one. I'm probably not going to take those scores seriously until about midway through the season. But I see so many holes that like this team can take advantage of. Love Palmer against Brandon Stevens. We know that Brandon Stevens, Baltimore was clicking their heels once he was no longer a part of their roster. Funny enough, you have Jair Alexander, not much better, but he's obviously a liability. I'm interested to see who lines up against him predominantly, at least according to PFF. Looks like it's going to be a lot of Palmer. Maybe Gardner is on Coleman. I hear Gardner's traveling now, according to Richie. He's not on an island anymore, so perhaps like that's going to be a rotational type thing. You have Carter the second nursing with an injury. I think Shakir can eat. Like, look, if I'm the Jets, I'm really, really hoping that they can establish some pass rush because say that Josh Allen gets the normal amount of time that he typically does. I think this is going to be another, like 300 plus yard game in the air, like type thing for QB1. That's me.
And you look at the moniker of everybody eats under Josh Allen, right? And it's been the case, but really everybody feasted the other night. When you look at the numbers, I mean, Keon Coleman obviously stands out. He had an unbelievable night. I really do think the offense wouldn't have been able to pull that comeback off if it weren't for his performance. But you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players with 4+ receptions, and all but Kincaid had 50+ yards, and he finished with 48 and a touchdown. So you look at where you're going to be able to spread the ball around. If you have Sauce Gardner on Coleman, based on what we saw last week, the expectations of Shakir, the ascension of Dalton Kincaid, obviously, if we're able to get what we saw from Keon Coleman in week one, I just think that there's going to be plenty of outlets to where I don't think you're going to be able to bottle it up. I mean, the Ravens last week on paper, once again, in terms of who they posed personnel wise, had everything in terms of their bag of tricks to be able to take the Bills out of that game when it mattered most, and they weren't able to do it. And I look at this upcoming week and I look at what they've been, this defense, what they have been over the last about calendar year or so. And I just don't know where they're going to be able to stop this offense collectively. And that's not even including James Cook, who I think he had a quiet good game the other day, and we'll see what he has this upcoming week. But I think it wasn't a statement game other than that amazing pass that he broke off and was able to get down inside the red zone. But that's not even including that aspect of the game. So I just don't see where the Jets defense is going to be able to stifle Josh Allen to the point where they're going to be able to keep them below 30. And like you mentioned earlier, Dan, or maybe it was you, Kevin, one of the two, I don't see how many games the Jets are scoring in the 30s and winning in the 30s. And I think if we saw it week one, the odds of seeing it week two, in my opinion, are very far-fetched.
So what are some of your matchups that you're looking for from the Bills' offensive side of the ball? And so against that defense, Kev? Like, who should they take advantage of?
Yeah, I don't see. I'm not a big Sherwood fan. Like he does some things well. I think he gets confused in the middle of the field. He's generally been a good run defender. He reminds me of Dorian Williams. PFF says he has an 80 run defense. Okay, so that would match. But honestly, look at that coverage grade. I'm not gonna hold anything to the grades as I just commented on in the Bills O-line. I didn't love, but he isn't actually good in coverage though. So it's a matchup, huge matchup pro. And then if Carter's out, I don't know how they cover any of the slot. I don't know how they cover anybody in the slot in the middle of the field where Josh Allen absolutely has feasted. Sauce Gardner's going to have a win. He's going to be able to potentially try to take somebody away, but great. We just said it's an everybody eat offense. Is he even going to travel with Coleman? I don't even know that he will. So maybe he gets to take away a portion of the game, and the Bills will take it though. If Gardner's out of the way, they like their matchup pretty much everywhere else on this field. This will be one for Shakir. Unlike last week where I predicted I didn't love Shakir against Humphrey, wasn't a great matchup. That wasn't where the Bills were going to win, and he still was effective. And that front was able to get to James Cook, Zeba. They did see some things in film where the Bills were going to run the ball. And they did. The Bills came out and tried to run the ball. They did. The first drive was decent. They got that crack toss to Ty Johnson. The second drive, they ran. And McDermott was not very happy. He commented on that this week and was like, yeah, we can't be in second and short and come up like that. That is unacceptable. So I did like to hear McDermott say, like, we're not going to go run like that again. But that was the game plan. They thought they were just like in the playoff, they were going to be able to run all over the Ravens. The Ravens countered and were ready for it for the beginning portion of the game. Josh Allen went out and threw. They weren't ready for some of for that. The Bills were absolutely elite in the passing game. Their pass blocking's been elite. So Dan, they just do not have the best safety in the league like the Ravens have. I just do not see how they're able to shut down. They play the 50% plus of man coverage. I don't know who's manning up with Khalil Shakir and Dalton Kincaid. And now Keon Coleman and Josh Palmer have the most yards in man coverage in the league last week. So 2 of the top 8 man coverage getters. I don't know where the pro matchups are here outside of turnovers or Quinnen Williams having a wrecking ball of a day, or the 2 DNs. You mentioned them. Maybe they are going to take that next step in a huge division game for them. So the front 4 has a little bit of potential. But other than that, like Andre Sisco's been who he is at journeyman safety. Tony Adams has been terrible. Brandon Stevens has been absolutely awful. He's the filet of the Ravens last year. Like he's just not good. He's not a good corner. It's like us playing Dane Jackson.
Yeah,
there's winnable matchups everywhere except for where Sauce is, and hopefully Dawkins and Brown, who are some of the best tackles in the league, can take care of the young looking defensive ends. Other than that, there's not very good matchups in my opinion, pro Jets on this side of the ball, but maybe they're becoming a more offensive team, Z-Bot.
30 points.
Imagine.
Dude. Like, honestly, man, like I look at it because, yes, it's easy to celebrate the win on Sunday. It was, I would say, top 3 Bills games that I can remember. It's probably number 1 for me because we actually ended up winning that one, right? I probably put, obviously that 13-second game, great game, broke my heart. Maybe, so the Vikings game a couple of years ago, great game, broke my heart. But number 1 was definitely that one. But I think that we could still say, that, so the defense, we want to see some improvements. And I'm not sure about you guys, but I'm not going to use the Baltimore game as a measuring stick for me to say, all right, this is what this Buffalo Bills defensive identity is. Because we're talking about 2 extremes. We're talking about, I'd say, second best quarterback in the league right now. And number 1, obviously, being Josh Allen. And perhaps second best to best running back in the NFL. Quality offensive line, solid defense. So on Sunday, I think that is going to give me more of a story of what this defensive side of the football looks like. And this team put up 30 points against a Steelers defense, which I suppose should be somewhat impressive, right? Maybe you can make the argument that they're getting old and they're falling off a little bit, but I don't particularly buy into that, which is a great segue, right? What are some of the matchups that we are going to be looking at on the defensive side of the football for the Bills? What is the game plan to shut this down? And before we do that, have to give a giant shout out to our good friends, Picasso's Pizza. Folks, if you are not in the Buffalo, New York area and you want to try some Buffalo pizza, or you miss Buffalo pizza and would like it to be delivered to your front doorstep nationwide, you have to go to picassospizza.net. They are delivering it to your front doorstep where you can pop it into the oven. Boom, you have a taste of home. Works great for gifts. If you are in the Western New York area, make sure you pop by Picasso's. Let them know that Bill's Roundtable ended up sending you over. All right, let's talk about defensive matchups we'd like. What's the overall game plan for the defense to bounce back and see what we can do? We have, we have Richie in the chat right now. He's booing at us right now. We have King Lowski. He's upset with us. You won't shut down anything, damn Mitchell. All right, let's talk about it. Let's talk a little bit about it. All right, Z-Bot. Bills are in desperate need of a defensive bounce back. How do they do it? Talk to me.
Well, I'm kind of looking at this from the angle of how are the Jets going to want to approach this? And I'm imagining they're going to want it to be awfully similar to what they did last week in the run game. I mean, you're signing up for 16 to 22, 218 and a touchdown from Fields every week. I think that they would sign up for that. I mean, if that was what they were given on a platter and they could sign off, they would. But the rushing game, you just saw what Derrick Henry did. You saw what Lamar did, all in limited attempts. They were averaging over 8 yards a carry. Derrick Henry had 3 30-plus yard rushes. Breece Hall isn't Derrick Henry. Justin Fields isn't Lamar. But as you guys alluded to earlier, they have been being referenced this past week as the discount version of the Ravens, and that quite literally is why. And I think when you're looking at that game, what they were able to do to Buffalo, I bet you Aaron Glenn and company is looking at that and saying, well, we might not be able to do it to that extent, but they scored 40 points. And, what we did last week, we were able to score 32 against the defense that's the highest paid in the entire NFL. They have to feel as though they have a little bit of confidence in being able to do it. And respectfully, I think that they probably feel like, or they probably should feel that way based on what the Bills showed and based on what they showed. You have a really good mobile quarterback in Justin Fields. I respect the legs. I mean, really, his ability to run the football is damn good. The problem is he just hasn't been given a consistent opportunity to do it. And I think he's in a system right now where they're just going to need anything at all times to be able to, or they're going to need any asset that he brings to the table at any given time to be able to win. I don't think they care how he does it. And then Breece Hall, I think, is extremely underrated compared to when you're talking about the top guys in the league. I don't know if you bring him up, but he's really good for, week in and week out being a guy that you look at the corner of the TV, look at the box score, and you're like, oh, Breece Hall had another good game. So I look at it through that lens, and I would imagine, right, looking at Breece Hall last week, 19 carries, over 100 yards, and then Justin Fields, 12 carries, nearly 50 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, 31 carries collectively between the two of them. Would you guys be shocked if they don't have at least 25 plus carries, those two amongst each other? Because you're going to want to do that for a variety of reasons. One, it helped them almost win last week. And you could argue, if not for a 60-yard field goal from Chris Boswell, a insane catch for the Pittsburgh Steelers late in that game that went their direction, that really should have been enough to get the W for them. They think they can win that way. Also, they want to keep Josh Allen off the field. And I know that they feel, and Kevin alluded to it earlier, and this is how I view this game. You look back at the history, and it feels like once a year for the last several seasons, the Bills get the Jets' best effort, and it comes down to the wire. And then the other game in the season is just an absolute trouncing. Which one are we going to get, right? Because the last 2 years, we had the 16-22 loss in overtime, right? Going into the game where Aaron Rodgers is set to start. He gets hurt. Zach Wilson takes over. They lose on a punt return. Then you beat them 32-6 later in the season. Then you had the 23-20 loss a season ago, and then you beat them 40-14. So we do get solid games out of these Jets, and you could argue over Josh Allen's career, maybe no team has defended Allen better collectively than the Jets. But from the offensive side of things, I think that they look at what they did last week. I think they think it's very similar to what the Ravens had success with. Not to say they have success with it again. And obviously Sean McDermott's back to the drawing board this week, but I would imagine the game plan is to do a lot of what they did last week and a lot of what the Ravens showed against Buffalo as well.
So the Buffalo Bills were operating a bit more out of 4-3 than I was anticipating against Baltimore. What are y'all boys thinking? Do we sort of go that same direction, or do you think we end up going back into our sort of honey hole in with nickel? What do you think, Kev?
I think it might be the other game a year where you can do a little for. I just don't think Dorian Williams is overly great. Like, honestly, that's where I land. I'd rather have Taron Johnson on the field, even if they don't have a slot receiver, which they don't in my Tyler Johnson's. I mean, they just don't have receivers on this team. I don't know how they built it offensively. They were really efficient. I just don't see the talent to EPA ratios. Justin Fields was awful under pressure. I think the EPA I saw just recently when I just pulled it was he was third worst under pressure. So like, honestly, so for instance, Josh Allen actually had a game last week where he was better under pressure than he was with a clean pocket. Absolute insanity. I think he was plus 0.6 EPA every time he was pressured. Just bonkers, right? And Justin Fields is negative EPA, like most quarterbacks are under EPA. Generally speaking, you're pressured, your EPA goes down. That's very much the truth with Justin Fields. Look, pressure to sack ratio was pretty good, but I think he was the 4th worst quarterback in the league under pressure per Andy Patton, who runs his own statistical models. That's going to be a problem if they're able to get some pressure on Justin Fields. He was negative 1.5 EPA per play when pressure, only behind Bo Nix and Tua, and pretty even with Aaron Rodgers, which was interesting because they played in the same game. But it's definitely a problem. And then you have Josh Allen on the other hand, who's the best in the league when pressured. So it's definitely an issue where I don't think Fashanu was very good. Like, his pressure data was terrible, regardless of what PFF says. He was absolutely atrocious in my opinion. Membu was really good though, so that was a good counter. But Fashanu was terrible. The left side of the line's an issue for sure. Simpson has had some good moments in his career, but he's not very good. And Myers is a fill-in center for Tittman, who moved to right guard. So it's not a good O-line. It's like not, in my opinion. But I do like Membu, and I do like the potential of Fashanu long term. But I just don't. And then Tippmann, obviously, they put some resources in, but I just think they stay in nickel because I think Taron Johnson is an ultimate warrior, and I just don't see enough. But if they're getting gashed and Taron Johnson's not overly healthy, even though he practiced today, and they can't figure it out, then you switch to 4-3, no biggie. But ultimately, like, I want Taron Johnson on the field. I like him in zone. It's not just his one-on-one matchup against Tyler Johnson. It's more about where he drops into cover 3, where he goes to cover different run and crackback options. He's just as good as a linebacker and run against the run. That's where people get really confused. You bring Dorian in, and maybe you have like a play or two better in the run, but it's significantly different in pass coverage. I like Taron Johnson to play in this game. I like him to stay on the field often. And just in case they do any moving of players around, you have a really solid slot who can take it down, guys, and you don't have Dorian Williams, who's a complete, like I just talked about with Sherwood, who's a complete liability in coverage. So Taron Johnson limits any mismatches and limits it, and you get a little lighter, a little pro on the run defense end, but Taron Johnson's an elite nickel run stopper.
He is indeed. And I got Clemens and Dawkins in 3 fights this game. Have the over-under, and between both of those two that clearly hate each other. I really want to know if the Membu dominating TJ Watt was a fluke last week, because say that it was true and say that he like sort of takes the same trajectory as Joe Alt did last year. Not a good game for Bosa to explode, but I mean, I think this is a great opportunity for him to win if, of course, lined up against him. Big question here, and a lot of questions, especially due to the injury report that we ended up seeing earlier that was released. And obviously, we have Ed Oliver, which we will talk about. But I think the biggest question to you is we have Tre'Davious White. He has been limited back-to-back practices. If he's a full participant, I'm not sure about you guys. As much as I love Dorian Strong, I thought that he played well, especially against the Baltimore Ravens. I thought he did for the most part. But rather than me trying to manifest what I want, I always like to think based off of the history of how Sean McDermott makes decisions. I think Trey would probably get the nod if he was healthy, right? Like, what are you thinking? If Trey White is good to go, does Dorian Strong still have the job, or is McDermott going with the vet in this instance, Z-Bot?
That's a hell of a tough question to me.
Yeah.
Because I think Strong looked solid, right? And I think that they were excited to go with him, earn that job once Tre'Davious White went down. That was up in the air. We didn't know who was going to end up winning that role this past weekend, and he took it in stride. But then again, you saw a lot of great out of Tre'Davious White this offseason that had this coaching staff, this fan base, this team really excited. Well, how healthy is he really, though, right? He misses last week. Do you want to risk that coming back this upcoming week? That's the question to me. It wouldn't stun me if they were to stick with Strong as a result. I feel like eventually Tre'Davious White will end up manning that position at some point. I just think based on what we heard all offseason, there's no way you don't see him out there in the starting capacity at some point. I think they're going to want to see it based on what they saw in camp. This upcoming week, it wouldn't stun me if we don't see it, though, just because I don't know if that's a full 100% right there. I think you're right. I think he'd probably rather lean that way if he could, but knowing that he going into last week, it was up in the air. Then all of a sudden it was basically completely ruled out by the end of the week. Now you're back. I don't know. The way I see it, I would probably tend to have him get as healthy as possible before trying to rush him out there. We know the injury history with him, and we know the inability to stay on the field, unfortunately. So I'd probably, if I'm McDermott, to be honest with you, I'd probably lean like a 60-40 not starting him just because of that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And while we're on you as well, and now like we're only in a sense of speculation right now because we have no idea what happened to Ed Oliver. Yesterday he was practicing, and today he was not. He was in a walking boot. Do you think that we see him out there on Sunday? And if not, who is the player we elevate from the practice squad? See.
That's a great question. I don't know. I mean, this is so brand new. I'm sick and tired of checking my phone and seeing something that I'm like, what the hell just happened, right? I have no idea. The speculation seems to be that it must have been an off the field thing, right? Because if he was practicing last week or yesterday, he had an unbelievable game, maybe the best of his career, honestly, the other night. Why all of a sudden is he not just injured, but in a boot? I mean, you know how that goes. The visuals of the boot sent everybody into a panic. You don't just throw a boot on for the hell of it unless that's what he's doing. And for whatever reason, I don't know, it seems to be an ankle injury. How did he suffer it? What's the severity of it? My issue recently has been we've heard about injuries that we don't know the severity of, and they've ended up resulting in time missed. We didn't know the severity of Tyler Bass. That turned into IR. We didn't know the severity of Tre'Davious White, who we just discussed. He was really up in the air for, weeks, then misses week 1. We still don't know the status going into week 2 in terms of how they plan to use him, if they plan to use him at all. So what is going on there? I have no idea. I've been tracking Thigh Doc super closely, and from what I can tell, he seems to be thinking that it has to be, or it seems to be at least, an off-the-field thing, because what other conclusion could you draw? Maybe it's just something that did happen on the field and it crept up over the week, but I have no idea. This is concerning because you just had him come off a performance where he was basically adjacent to Josh Allen in terms of talking points for anybody who was discussing that game. The Bills do not win that game if it weren't for Ed Oliver. So yeah, that is an awfully concerning development this week. Maybe it doesn't end up being concerning, but the fact that he's even on the radar, the fact that he's in a boot, Dan, I mean, what would result being in a boot unless it being absolutely necessary? I mean, it's not like he just threw it on. I'm imagining he had to have been told to put it on. Why? And then the scooter element too. Like,
yeah,
it's Thursday. You know what I mean? It's not Monday.
Yeah.
That's the other thing too. So that's where I'm kind of scratching my head here. How did it happen? And to the extent that it needs a boot in a scooter, that can't mean it's just a rest day. To me, that's how I see it.
Yeah. It's my best educated guess. Would probably have to do with the fact that on Wednesday we did full pads, and he must have aggravated something toward the end of practice, and we just learned about it today. I mean, that's my best guess. Like,
Yeah.
it's that, or like he heard it while he was back home, like doing something. I don't know. Kev, thoughts on the injury report, on the Dorian Strong, Tre'Davious White dilemma? Same thing with Ed Oliver. Go off.
Yeah, I mean, you can be put in a boot very short temporary term to reduce swelling or increase the healing process, or like keep things corrected. So I have heard of that before, at least when an ankle injury is, which it was reported as. If it was foot, I know we were concerned about, I would be more worried, but the Bills reported it as ankle. So could just be a lower that they're looking to put some stability on and make sure he stays off of. It's not crazy. Like D-Bot said, though, I'd prefer that was a Monday thing if that's what was needed. The fact that it was Thursday, did he get hurt in practice? Did he get hurt at home? I think practice is still more likely. I don't know how crazy these guys get in season, like game week. I think during the bye would be something they're, off, maybe doing their crazy, personal activities they like to do. But I really think that is probably something that could have happened at practice and or flared up from the game. Full practice on Wednesday makes it unique. I don't know. I'm iffy on if he plays, but I still think that generally a good sign, seeing that nothing has come out about it, or I'm usually a national reporter or somebody is out in front of it. Didn't McDermott not even, I mean, they haven't even said anything on it. I know they don't talk on Thursdays, but I'm not overly concerned yet about it, at least maybe a game, but we'll see if that's just something they wanted to keep him off of. I'm thinking if it was a severe injury, he's probably not scootering around the fun room and, getting involved with ping pong or other things. So,
yeah.
So that's why I'm honestly not overly concerned. Taron Johnson looks on the way up. It looks like Trey White may even be ready. So I'm not overly concerned by any of the injuries at this stage. Maybe they do rest Ed, but I'm not. They do have the Dolphins on Thursday though, so a week from today.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Like, let's be honest with ourselves too. Like, so does it make us nervous at all if Ed can't play for these next 2 games? And so the Jets and the Dolphins.
After that, normally no. Normally no. I would say maybe not. But coming off his maybe best game as a Bill, where we're thinking he's like one of the best defensive tackles in the league. Like,
oh yeah. Like, we're floating around Aaron Donald reincarnated and stuff, with overreaction Mondays. But
you know what, Dan? You'll appreciate this. AFC North Roundtable last night. That is who Zim compared Ed Oliver to. He said that was one of the best D-tackle performances he's seen since Aaron Donald. So I figured you would appreciate that because that's a Bengals fan giving high praise to Ed Oliver. But Kevin nailed it, though, by the way. It's not a matter of if they can win or not without him. I think they can. It's a matter of we just saw this guy put an all-time performance together, and now he's off the field. Like, we're looking to see if we can build on this. I mean, he literally, what was it? Was it TJ Sanders that he just told to stay on the sideline? He had a rep coming up or whatever. And he goes, no, I'm going back in. I mean, he was like locked in to the point of, I mean, he really did win them that game. He doesn't force that Derrick Henry fumble, they lose. So the guy had an all-time night.
Yo, Rook. We have a caller backstage. Dwayne's in the building. What's up, Dwayne?
Hey, what's up, guys? How y'all doing today?
How's it going, Dwayne?
Brother? How you doing?
Good. I have a question. There was a lot of higher scoring games this first week. A lot of games that we wouldn't have normally expected to score as high as they did. Do you think that was a huge factor because of the lack of teams actually going out in preseason and having some reps? Or do you feel that this is more of we're going to see more of what we're seeing right now?
Interesting. Dwayne, I appreciate the call, brother.
Dwayne, I'll tell you this, 76% of kickoffs return in week one. The NFL finally got what they wanted. The kickoff is back. It's real. You saw the Bills open that game up by running the ball to damn near the 50. We talked about this, not ad nauseum, not a ton, but I think enough during the offseason. We made some points to kind of back up the fact that when you have a quarterback like Lamar and Allen, you're going to be able to score far more frequently now than ever before. And the Bills were already scoring 31 a game last week. I don't know if this is last season, rather. I don't know if this is an anomaly in week one here. I don't think the kick returns are an anomaly, though. The high scoring has to be correlated to it. If you get the ball at the 35, you really, for most of these kickers, need about 20-ish yards to have at least a decent attempt at a field goal. I mean, there's going to be higher scoring games as a result. I think that the scoring in week one, maybe it was due to just the rust being shaken off and the offense having the upper hand in that regard. But I really do think the kick returns are going to play a major role in seeing a higher score increase than we're used to throughout the upcoming season here.
So for me, I like to look at the New Orleans Saints of 2024. For the first 2 weeks where everyone thought that they were destined for the Super Bowl and averaged 42 points per game, week one and week two. I do think that a lot of these, like, holy hell, the Colts put up 33. I don't particularly see the Colts to maintain that. I don't think the Jets are going to maintain that either. I'm sorry, Jets fans. But yeah, it probably has to do with lack of reps during the preseason. I think that we'll start to get a good idea of who all of these NFL teams are by week 3. I think you still might see a little bit of week 2, like, holy hell, what just happened? But week 3 is typically when I start like making conclusions. Kev?
Yeah, I mean, look, like you said, some of the best defenses in the league. You had Baltimore falter. You had Pittsburgh falter. I mean, whatever you think of the Jets defense, you've had some of the best defense in the league. The Bills, wherever you want to rank them at times, not good. So are we going to say that all of those defenses are going to play at 33 plus points per game let up? No, like it's not going to happen. But I do think there is some initial shock and correlation to maybe the field position in kick returns, because I talk about EPA all the time. And all that is, generally speaking, is how much closer are you getting to the end zone affecting points? How close are you to the first down? And like, you're getting closer. So like these plays are getting a little bit more advantageous to the offense if you're getting 5 to 10 to 15 yards based on the return, depending on, where you line up. People are going to have to think of and they will really quickly think of creative ways to get people back inside the 30, consistently back at the 20-25. And they're going to be able to be more creative with some of these kickoffs if they think that is the reason for the affection of yards equaling points. So I do think there's some correction there. And I think that there's still some unknown. There's a lot of teams with new quarterbacks and new things going on. Like, look, we talked about a bunch of teams with new quarterbacks. No one has film on any of these guys on their rosters. So it's not like, and then you have some of the best quarterbacks in the league, like Jackson and Allen, who are going to always be ready week one, generally speaking. But you got a lot of quarterbacks that are playing on new teams across the board. So, and you've seen that you mentioned the Colts exactly like that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and even the Jets a little bit, and the Steelers. Teams will correct quickly to their best plays. You think that the Jets and the Steelers went out there with their worst plays with the playoffs in mind. They probably are hoping for that, but they're playing their absolute best and doing what they can to absolutely affect and win a football game. Where I wasn't sure in the Bills in the first quarter if they were throwing what they would normally throw toward the end of the year at the Ravens, who generally they corrected quickly in the second half. But the 3 straight runs is an example to me. Like that's not what they're going to do when the margin's the tightest. So, and then you have the opposite of these quarterbacks. So I think Dwayne, people will adjust. Defenses will not be that poor in the future. And unless it has something to do with his return, and it is that 5 to 7 to 8 yard difference, it's really putting stress on defenses. And then we could definitely see a 5 to 10% uptick because that's how many extra yards you're getting per drive.
And so, except for that bum ass organization over in Cincinnati, expect 17 points on average all season. Anyway, James Goldsmith is backstage. So James,
what's up, James?
What's on your mind, man?
17 points on average. Hey there. Is backstage. James, how you doing?
Hey, man, we're doing great. How about yourself?
What's on my mind is Ed Oliver. Yeah, what's on my mind is Ed Oliver. Does this mean that we might see, say, 25 snaps from either Sanders or Walker this week? And do you know if Jordan Phillips is game ready? That's all I got.
James, we appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for calling in. Shout out James. That's my guy. So for me, I think that you would want to bring up Jordan Phillips if Ed Oliver couldn't go, because I do think I would trust him a bit more than Zion. Now, yes, I know we have to be mindful because we can only elevate him 3 times before we need to sign him to the 53-man active roster. So I guess that's kind of like the way. But I don't know, man. Like, we're going to have to just wait and see. Hopefully, like Kevin was suggesting, it's not as serious as we think. It's preventative. He's going to go out there. Maybe he's just limited snaps. Maybe he misses out on the Jets game. He's a full go for Miami. But say that it was up to me, I think Phillips would probably be my guy to elevate. Kev?
Yeah, sounds right. And 16 snaps for Sanders last week. Do I think he's going to get? Yeah, absolutely. If that is out, he will get 9 more snaps. I think you'll see. And it'll be useful for him, just like it was with Dorian Strong. You'll want him to see 25 snaps. This may be a really good game. They have an okay interior offensive line, in my opinion. So I think it's a really good game for him and Walker to see some snaps from it as well. But yeah, I would expect Jordan Phillips to come in and take some of these snaps away. Quite frankly, I don't think you would go with Zion Logan this. You may if Daquan Jones was hurt, but they're really pretty versatile the way they run their defensive tackle unit, that they could go either route with who they're going to call up. But yeah, naturally speaking, and it looked like randomly Jordan Poyer looked actually kind of ready to play, in my opinion too. Not saying that there's a move there yet, but they could very well see like Hancock's down or he's hurting with the shoulder. Any variation, they could call up both Jordans in this game, just for some vet presence if they still think they're having some safety issues. But I see Phillips back, but game ready means he needs to play like 8 to 12. I do think that Sanders probably sees, 35 snaps had to be dueled out from last week. He played 69% of the time. So I think there's a combination of the 2 rookies taking some of those snaps and then Phillips taking 10 to 15. That sounds about right.
Love to see it. Z-Bot, thoughts? Who are you elevating?
Totally agree. In lockstep there, all the way across the board. But in reality, I just want to see Ed Oliver. The key here, though, I think, is that you got to play it smartly, right? I think that you don't need to probably play Ed Oliver to the capacity in which you did last week. I think that probably goes without saying. So I'm just hoping that we do get a healthy Ed Oliver, but not in not being used in a way that overexerts him if he is banged up. But I completely agree with what Kevin had to say, and I think it's more opportunity to see what these rookies have too, which is great because obviously there's a lot of high expectation there and excitement. So maybe it's just that's the silver lining in this if we don't see a whole lot of Ed Oliver. But stop Justin Fields, stop Breece Hall. That's going to be the game plan for anyone out there, and I'm hoping Ed Oliver gets the opportunity to pull off what he did again last week.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunate news. I'm sorry for the callers backstage right now. And Lowski, we're not running from you either. All right. Next week, we'll let you in. All right. But I have to hop on the AFC East Roundtable. It starts in about 2 to 3 minutes. However, Lowski, I promise we will let you on next episode. However, let's go around with a final score prediction, and then let's get everybody out of here. And I see Lowski smiling back there. Don't worry, we're going to let you on next week. Don't worry, but I got to run. Z-Bot, last but not least, final score prediction. What do you got?
Well, first off, shout out to Sean McDermott's GQ catalog picture. That was unbelievable. I just didn't know. I didn't know he had that side of him in him. I mean, the Bills are on a whole other level, man. I'm just taking this all in, the way that they're kind of operating. It's just the new things that didn't exist in Buffalo that all of a sudden exist. It will never cease to amaze me. And it seems that the players are absolutely getting a kick out of it too, which I love. Give me 30-20, the Bills on Sunday. 30, which insanely enough seems to be a low point for these Bills. I think that they do a decent enough job defensively to throw Allen off a little bit more than maybe he's used to, especially coming off the MVP and what he did last year. But with that said, it's still 30 points. I don't think the Jets are scoring 30 again. I still think we do see some nice things out of Breece Hall and Justin Fields. I think they do have a moment or two in this game. I do think it'll be tight, probably around the halfway point, but I think that the separation between these two teams currently will eventually show itself later on. Bills win by 2 scores, 30-20 in MetLife on Sunday. 2-0, gentlemen. First AFC East win of the season.
Oh, I love it. I'm on the exact same page as you, man. I think Buffalo scores 30. I don't think anything's stopping this offense from scoring 30 points very often this year alone, as long as obviously we stay healthy in all of the right places. I do think the defense bounces back. I do think we make a statement. Hot take, I'm going with 2 turnovers, two interceptions, as a matter of fact. I think that Buffalo is really just going to make Justin Fields prove that he can read a defense consistently, that he can beat you with his arm. I like a lot of the matchups. I think Buffalo holds this offense to 17 points, 31-17 Bills. Kevin.
I got 27-24 Buffalo. I think that they keep it close. We only won by 3 last time they played in MetLife, including think bounces going their way. But then also at the end where, Rodgers didn't get Mike Williams to the red line. If you guys remember that conversation that happened last season. And even with Zach Wilson down there, we have struggled at times. So ultimately, I do believe he's better than Justin Fields is better than Zach Wilson, and they'll come out ready. And they seem to, in the game, to Z-Bot's point, is game 1 is when the game they usually play the best, pretty statistically, analytically. On game 2, maybe they have injuries, maybe they've fallen out. The Bills are humming on all cylinders. That's usually the game that the Bills. I don't know if for some reason we play New York first and then Buffalo second has seemed to be like what it's been, which has been super weird to see for most of this. So I think that maybe that has something to do with it, but this will be the game. I think the Jets are coming off of a pretty good high. There's still not a ton of film on Fields. 27-24 Buffalo. I don't think it'll be overly great, but survive in advance. The Bills start to hum on all cylinders in November and not December when you want them to.
It's my cardiovascular health needs an ass whooping, so I could just put my feet on my desk and enjoy it for.
Maybe it'll be Thursday, a week from today.
Say that I see Mitchie Biscuits up there, in the fourth quarter, that's a good
Josh
game.
baseball hat.
Yeah, exactly, man. That's what I'm talking about. But folks, thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of the Bills Roundtable. I am hopping on the AFC East Roundtable here in just a couple of minutes, where we continue the previews. We have the Patriots versus the Dolphins. I'm still battling back and forth on who wins that one. And then the Bills and the Jets. So certainly go meet us over at the AFC East Roundtable, guys. You know the Bills Roundtable live Mondays and Thursdays. We try to be live at 5 p.m. EST each and every single day, but we've had some scheduling difficulties, but rest be assured we're here. Thank you so much for tuning in, boys. I appreciate you co-hosting as always, and we'll see you on Monday while we celebrate yet another Buffalo Bills victory. See you soon.
Go Bills.